So like a long-term triple net lease kind of scenario. What stood out to you about that deal that said, hey, this is a great deal?
So the location was great. There wasn't an existing dialysis clinic within maybe 30, 40 miles of it. It was brand new lease with a pretty big operator. The medical director had other operations as well. So looked like a good deal. It was brand new construction, and so we knew the developer just wanted to keep doing it to become a preferred vendor for that clinic, and which they did become. And so their main interest was in just building, not even in making a huge profit.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today's guest serves exclusively as legal counsel to Securities and Regulation D syndications. Has been investing in syndications himself for almost 10 years now. On top of that, has been a real estate attorney for the past 19 years. And it's an amazing conversation. We're going to break down the walls, pull back the curtains, and really get to an understanding behind these safe harbor regulations of syndications. What that means for us is understanding the documents that are required and what's the process. When should we be seeing these documents? What does it mean? What's a soft commitment? What's a subscription? There's so many things that we kind of just, me personally, my eyes glaze over when I see all of this stuff, but it's so important to get started and understanding that. And for those of us who may be thinking, hey, how can I be a sponsor? What do I need to do to create this syndication and understand this process? You're going to want to listen to the conversation today. What an awesome resource to have on our side. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Tilden Moschetti. Welcome to the show, Tilden. What a great day to be here and talk real estate. I'm excited to jump into this. How's it feel to be Tilden today?
Absolutely great. I'm always happy on a day I get to talk about deals and helping people make money. So
awesome. And just a little bit of background for the listeners to learn a little bit more about you and kind of build that authority because, hey, you've got a couple of things working for you here. You are one, a real estate investor doing this yourself, but two, have the law background to really understand the ins and outs of what we're going to be talking about today. So why don't you let listeners in on a little bit of your experience professionally and then into real estate as well?
Sure. So after getting an MBA, I decided I really wanted to be a real estate developer. So my idea was to do assisted living facilities using modular home construction. It was a great idea. I had no idea what I was doing. So I was looking around at where I could learn how to do what I was wanting to do. And I saw a bunch of lawyers. I saw lawyers that were doing these developments that in my community. So I thought, oh, that's a good idea. Why don't I go get a law degree? So I did that. And so my classes were all, property and contracts and things like that. Turns out I ended up becoming a litigator because the adrenaline rush of litigating is quite a pull. So I litigated for 10 years but still was doing a real estate centered thing. So it was real estate as it relates to ownership, bankruptcy, family, any time where real estate was the main asset, that was what I would do. About 10 years later, I was getting kind of burnt from litigating, and I did some commercial brokerage of real estate and really enjoyed that part of it, but didn't really want to be a broker, but, just dabbled. I had a partner who was on that side who showed me a deal, and it was a great deal. It was for one of the large dialysis providers, a development project for them, a single unit building. It was really good. And he said, check out this deal. I looked at it and said, oh my gosh, that is a really good deal. he's like, yeah, we should syndicate it. And I was like, okay, sure. I had no idea what he was really talking about. I'd heard of it, but no clue. And so I said, sure, we can do that. And kind of figured out how to do that. One deal led to another. And I started thinking, well, why I enjoy putting these deals together. Why am I not doing this instead of litigating? So I switched my practice over. Now my law practice just focuses entirely on syndication and putting funds together. And then my investments really span across real estate, mostly still in real estate, but some other business interests and things like that as well.
Interesting. And then this piece on syndication. So your first one, it sounded like it was like a single-use commercial piece where
Medical office,
medical office. So like a long-term triple net lease kind of scenario. What stood out to you about that deal that said, hey, this is a great deal?
So the location was great. There wasn't an existing dialysis clinic within maybe 30, 40 miles of it. It was brand new lease with a pretty big operator. The medical director had other operations as well. So looked like a good deal. It was brand new construction. And so we knew the developer just wanted to keep doing it to become a preferred vendor for that clinic, and which they did become. And so their main interest was in just building, not even in making a huge profit. Turned out to be a really good, there was a lot of juice left in it still. So there was just a huge amount of profit. So ultimately the play was, well, we'll buy it. It had a 15-year lease. We'll keep it for 5, sell it with 10 years left, right after the increase in rent, and that's what we did. Made investors, a good return, and it worked, seamlessly. They were a great tenant while we had them, and
nice.
Yeah, it was kind of a dream first one because it wasn't overly intensive. But it got us a lot of practice. So.
Nice. And the partner in this first deal, is that a partnership that you would structure your future partnerships after? I mean, was that something, or what did you learn from that first partnership in the syndication process?
Pick your partners well. The first guy, the one who showed me, there were 4 of us total. The one who showed me the deal was great. We're still great friends and still would do deals together. The other partners, we probably won't do deals together anymore. Just a conflict of values. So, I mean, the lessons learned really is, pick your partners well, make sure you're aligned on vision and strategy and how you want to grow or change or deal with investors, and make sure that there's alignment there. It's even in my law practice, because most people don't syndicate completely alone. They have other partners, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3. Is a lot of times I'll get involved in putting together those partnership agreements as well, to make, and fortunately, I've had mostly good experiences, but enough rocky things go on, and certainly from my litigation background, I saw some really bad stuff. I'm pretty good at getting people either aligned or if it doesn't look like it's going to happen, I'll say it looks like you just have a conflict here. You may not be the best for this particular deal together, and I haven't had to do that much, but occasionally.
Do you ever feel hesitation for people to partner with you as an attorney, as a litigator, as an attorney? Like, hey, if this person's at the table, if something goes wrong, I don't have a chance. No,
I don't think so. I think it's more seeing me as an ally. I can take off a huge amount of the burden that comes on. I'm very good at finance and I'm very good at law, obviously.
Yeah.
And so, I'm used to shouldering more than my load, and I enjoy it. So I hope they don't see me as a
Yeah.
threat. Uh, my value system is pretty clear too, and I'm very consistent on how I deal with people. So it's, I have the givers get mentality. So the more I give, the more that just naturally comes to me.
Yeah. And that's where that importance comes back in on values too. If your values align, and Tilden, we can't always evaluate the values of others. I mean, I'm sure we
Yeah.
get the wool pulled over our eyes, no matter how good we think our intention is or our record. So it's not always there. But if we're focusing on that, where our values align, so much of this other stuff goes away. And I asked that question because from the outside in, when I first started working with attorneys, there was that just that cloud that hung over my head, like, oh no, what am I, what if? But when it comes down to it, like you said, if the values align, then it is a partnership, and then we can grow off of our gifts together. So
Exactly.
in your experience, what are some of the ways that maybe new syndicators have messed up, have maybe forgotten something or dropped the ball?
Well, in syndication world, probably the most common thing is people don't do the legal requirements, right? They don't fulfill what they need to do in order for the security to be properly a security. So under our system of rules, we Regulation D, which is what my practice is under, which is basically an exception to registering a security with the SEC. In order to do that, there's certain requirements. And so, and we call that whole thing a safe harbor, right? It's a safe place where you are not going to be able to be successfully accused of making a public offering, which is something you don't want to do. So a private offering is the space that we're in, and this safe harbor makes it clear this is a private offering. So the most common thing, and I talk to at least one person a week who's either done it or is probably going to do it, where they think it's okay to kind of skip these things, which put them in this safe harbor. It's not the end of the world if it happened in the past, but it's in everybody's best interest to get it right in the future. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably the biggest challenge that people miss. So that's the more legal side. On the non-legal side, the biggest trap I see people do is they get too attached to a deal, which is, I get attached to deals too. And it's hard. A lot of my personal philosophy is built around the story of a property and why it's investable, rather than seeing it as just some sort of commodity. When you do that, it becomes even more, you get even more attached. And the hardest thing to do is to be rational on that side, because that's the best thing a syndicator can do for their investors, is also be willing to say, nope, not the right deal, and walk away. And it hurts and it's extremely painful. But you got to do it. And, everybody, every syndicator, knows that they know when they're in that position. It's just really, really hard to do.
What are some of the steps? You mentioned the safe harbor, getting the investment into that ballpark. From the outside in, what are some things that should be shown to the capital raise, people who are looking at these deals?
Well, I mean, there certainly needs to be a private placement memorandum. So that's sort of the core document. I oftentimes call it or use the metaphor of when you go to the bank and you open a checking account and they give you that big book to read that nobody ever does. That's the PPM. Most people don't read it, which they really should. But most people don't, and most people probably still aren't going to. But that document, if I was an investor and I didn't get one, you should run to the hills, because that kind of tells you that it's on the right level, that they're taking it seriously and they're doing the right things. If you just get an operating agreement, it's probably not set up right, and it's probably a violation of security rules, which is a problem for the investor because the whole deal can fall apart, and you don't want to be brought into somebody else's, deal that's just falling apart. It's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the first big tip off. And the second really is, if you understand how real estate works and you have like a good sense about how money works and what a good deal looks like, and if your gut's telling you something it's not there, it's probably not. And so it probably doesn't actually work as a good deal. Mm-hmm. And the third thing is, and it's something I tell all of my clients, is always, always, always show up like a professional. Always show up with, good looking documents, be able to explain things well, thoroughly. And if you can't, you're probably going to start getting that funny feeling that it doesn't seem like a great deal, and it's probably not. The deal itself might be okay, but if the syndicator isn't able to show up like a pro, then it's probably not the right deal for you.
So we've got this PPM, the Private Placement Memorandum, the OA, the Operating Agreement, these two documents. And then I'm just thinking in my mind, when like the listeners are going through, the watchers are going through this process, a lot of times we'll see this, what I call the fluff forma, the pro forma out front and selling it's such a great deal. You don't want to miss this. And then, I think that's paired right behind like these soft commitments. At what point, or what's the process chronologically of when these documents should be requested compared to the soft commitment? What in the world is a soft commitment, first of all?
Sure. Yeah, soft commitment is really that. It's, that seems like something I would be interested in investing in. No way is it going to be enforceable. Well, as a lawyer, I'm never supposed to say that, but it's extremely unlikely it's ever enforceable. It really is. Yeah, that looks like something that I probably would be interested in. And it's a very common practice. I do it all the time because you just don't want to waste your time on trying to talk about a specific deal that's not right for this person, but I probably will have another deal that will be, right? I don't want to tell them about this one thing that they're never going to invest in. Mm-hmm. The process typically will go something like, there's some sort of introduction. The sponsor and the potential investor have met. They've discussed what the general deal is, so they've probably seen some marketing material. At the point where you've heard, or where the sponsor's heard that there's some level of interest, normally you'll give the documents. So you'll give a PPM, an operating agreement, or what's called a subscription agreement, which is the real commitment. Those will go to the investor for them to review. And so at that point, they can ask questions. They can do all, really dig in deep and spend some time getting to know the investment and decide if they want to invest. During that process, there's probably some communication that has a soft commitment in it, so that the sponsor has a good idea on if this is likely to be an investment, so that they should make sure to allocate enough time to answer all the questions, because we only have so much time. Assuming that goes forward and they really do want to invest, they sign the subscription agreement, wire the money, and then normally we'll get a countersigned back subscription agreement. And at that point, they're in. They're in the deal. So,
in that subscription agreement, say that subscription agreement is signed, and then the investor wants to say, you know what, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this. What happens then?
Very few. So if it's signed but the money hasn't gone in, it's probably just going to get canceled anyway. The sponsor doesn't want to be carrying around an investor that hasn't put in any cash. the sponsors are always concerned about finding good investors. So if there's a change of heart, I would never try and force an investor to stay in if they change their mind. I'm always looking 2, 3, 4 deals down the road. So I'm giving them their money back as quickly as I possibly can, because I want them for my next deal that does feel like a better fit for them. And it's also the right thing to do. So that's the way almost every sponsor that I've met, and certainly my clients would work with. I think it'd be an extremely rare case where you'd have a different kind of reaction. And if you did, all the more reason that you had those bad feelings, and we're running for the hills.
Yeah. So if in the point where, those instances, not that I would suggest or I would want to do something like this, but if something happens and you're feeling like you're getting strong-armed to continue, then that's probably a misalignment of values. So coming all the way back to that values thing. So we've got this general summary. We've got an idea. It goes out, general summary. And then prior to getting the PPM, the operating agreement, the subscription agreement, there's this point where we request, hey, I would like to underwrite this deal. So I need some real numbers. I need that rent roll. I need the T12, that trailing 12. Give me as much information as I can. So what about the disclosures that have to happen, or the NDA that has to happen? Is there a name for that document, or where does that fall in the process here?
And most of the time, for my own deals, I generally don't do an NDA unless it's required by like the seller of a property or a business that I'm raising money for or something, because it's just a deal. It's not; these really aren't that super secret. So I normally don't do an NDA, but I would do, certainly there needs to be some sort of document room or something to allow as much information as possible. And I think most sponsors really have that and have it set up in order to make sure, the PPM does a great job of warning you of all the horrible things that can happen in an investment, but no sponsor wants to get to that point. It's much easier to say, well, I told you so in the PPM, and I gave you access to all the data that was there, and you still made the decision in order to invest. If something goes bad, that's always the best solution at the end of the day.
Yeah. And for the listeners out there who are maybe have done a few of these and kind of getting more into that sponsorship role, that capital raise role, and general partnership perspective, how do I even go about starting? You had this experience yourself with that first deal. What would you say for the listeners out there is the process to get this started?
It's really the desire to do it, right? So, it is work, but you get well compensated for it. So it's work that you do make a good amount of money on. And so once that desire is there, almost everybody, they'll contact a securities attorney like myself, who can walk them through the steps, who can make sure that they're legal. Where my practice is a little different is because I have the experience that I think most of my colleagues don't have, of doing my own deals, that I like the strategy with them about marketing and, how are we going to package this deal and make it all good also and something investable. So a good securities attorney, I think, does that and helps, with the process as well. We're kind of wear that coach hat at the same time as the legal hat, just to make sure that goes forward.
And if I know this is a vague hypothetical question here, but if I'm just trying to get some numbers down on a napkin, what in the world, or how should I even start to get that range of cost for legal to structure the syndication?
It depends a lot on the law firm. I think if you were to go to a huge place, a big firm, they were probably looking at 40,000. That's a lot of money to spend. Um, uh, Boutique firms like mine are much cheaper than that. There do exist templates online, but I've never seen a template that's been worth anything. So I wouldn't go that route. I would probably just, pick up the phone, call us, and we can certainly go through what those costs are. But it's well less than 40,000. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And if you could go back 10 or 15 years, with the knowledge that you have now, what would you focus on a little differently this time around?
Doing a lot more deals. So
Yeah.
would certainly be what I would do. It took a long time for me to get that kind of deal swagger that I got, and I only developed it by talking to a lot of investors and a lot of other sponsors. And so the more deals I had done early, the faster I would have gotten the confidence to just be, now I can just look at a deal and I know what the pitch is. I know how I would talk to an investor, anytime. That's not hard. Whereas, the first few deals, would have taken me hours to think about and strategize and, kind of figure it out. And that just gives me more confidence in every other deal. So I probably would have started sooner.
And you've been doing this for about 10 years now. What has been the best source of opportunities for you?
Oh boy. Well, in terms of in my internal network's probably the best source of opportunities. So I've got people from, my the lawyer community has brought me deals that I've worked on together with them, partnerships. I've had deals with people just in our office building that I've talked to, hey, if you ever look for somebody who needs to raise some capital, let's talk. That's even worked. I think that especially a lot of your listeners are medical folks. I think that's totally prime. I've done a lot of deals where doctors will even buy their own, basically, a big medical building that they're going to all participate in, but also find investors for. And I've seen some incredibly great slam dunks out of that, where they've just made a ton of money and work well together and everybody's happy. So it's really those kind of successes that I see the most of it is. I like doing deals with my inner thing, and I hear a lot from clients too. So I get a lot of I'll at least get ideas for investments from clients, and there are some clients that I will do deals with.
Nice. And this idea that real estate is the business of relationships, that comes down and to exactly what you're talking about there. And aligning values inside of those relationships means so much, not only for the current deal, but like you were saying, the next deal, the deal after that, the next 5 years, and doing more sooner. Doing more deals sooner is something that you're suggesting. What a great resource to have. And this building this relationship is awesome. So any of the listeners that are out there who, one, maybe have some more questions about the structure of syndications, how to be that sponsor, difference. We didn't even talk about this between 506B and 506C, how we can advertise those deals, who can invest in those deals. That is all can be found on your website. And that's moschettilaw.com, moschettilaw.com. And they can reach out to you, Tilden, and have a free consultation call too, which is basically like the introduction, right, to meet Tilden.
Exactly. And we'll talk about what the deals are. I love hearing about them. And also on the website, I've got over 100 videos that go through kind of any questions that may come up, and we're always adding more. So, there's really If it's
Nice.
at all interesting, we're a good resource.
So like a frequently asked questions section, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's housed under a podcast, but it's answers where we give kind of every kind of question I've heard or could come up with that somebody may have.
Beautiful. And that's moschettilaw.com. Tilden, thank you so much for your time. So much information here, and just kind of clearing away the haze in some of this stuff. There's so much to it, and you don't really have to be an attorney to understand it. But man, having an attorney as part of your team, does it get any better than that?
Yeah, exactly. And your investors will pay for your attorney time anyway, so it's we're a cheap resource to the sponsor too. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Tilden. Enjoy the rest of your day. To the listeners out there today, thank you for your time and your attention. And your attention does need to go on this side. Your eyes may glaze over when you pull open a document or a PDF and there's, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 pages to there, but there's reason for those pages. Having somebody like Tilden on your team, on your side, helps you get through that process of understanding the PPM, the operating agreement, the subscriptions, and laying all that out, giving your attention to that on the front. It means a lot. It's worth it. And just like Tilden is saying, get some deals done, do more, build your relationships with the people whose values align with yours. That's really important. This is the Real Estate Mogul MD.